Okay, so this was supposed to be a presentation about decentralized science in the funding category, but a lot of you here actually do know this part, so I'll go very fast through. And we are recording this, right? So we're going to talk about reproductive aging and the age of decentralization. And for those who don't know, hey guys in the back, it would be really great if you guys actually did pay attention to the talk or not be there talking, socializing. Anyways, for those who don't know me, my name is Laura Minkini. I'm the core lead of AthenaDAO. And AthenaDAO is focused in funding women's health research. What is, I don't think the thing, oh yeah. So our goal is to be the leading decentralized driven platform enabling translation of women's health research, education, and funding. With more research and development, there's going to be more clinical data. More clinical data is going to lead to more investments. More investments is going to lead to more therapeutics, and more therapeutics to new treatments and options for women. So what's the problem? It's that it's a huge missed opportunity. Women may have the world's population, and we're going to give you just one example. The menopause market is valued at $600 billion because basically every woman on earth is going to go through menopause. You might not all have children, but you're all going to have menopause. And when you look at the funding dollars in the category, is staggering. Longevity, which a lot of you have heard about and is very hot in biotech and science and in venture capital, this graph is showing you the funding categories in longevity. Cellular reprogramming, which is, for instance, Altos Lab, the company that Jeff Bezos funded that got $3 billion out the door, is number one. Reproductive longevity, which touches all of women's health, is second last and just after dogs. Yay for my dog, bad for my ovaries. So most of you here already know the advantages of a DAO, but for those who are new to decentralized science, the decentralized autonomous organization presents a very good opportunity to work in traditionally overlooked areas of research. We're something between a research institute, a funding mechanism, and a community, all powered by the blockchain. So the thing that the blockchain provides is the incentives and the technology that makes all of this possible. So far, since our formation in August 2022, we have one stealth company under review. We've launched a token. We've had one equity deal funded, 2 IP NFTs, and I'm very excited, and it should be like the biggest news in this summit, that we actually have a scientist funded by decentralized science here with us. We have 40 active contributors, people that put between 5 to 10 hours a week doing something for the DAO, from researchers, people in community and awareness. We've had 80 project submissions, of which we have the 3 that are funded, and we have a couple more in the pipeline. And we are the second biggest bio DAO in the ecosystem after VitaDAO. Our core team comprises of a mix of scientists, entrepreneurs. As you can see, we've grown a lot in terms of contributors. We also have a legal mind and part of our core team. And we're very proud because we've been able to bring a lot of women into decentralized science. And a lot of them are actually scientists. These are also other select contributors, people that we tap here once in a while. You'll see somebody like Vincent from Molecule, who is the one of the core members there that launched BioXYC, the funding mechanism by which AthenaDAO was formed. For instance, will come and help us with tokenomics. Or you have Shmakofan, who comes and tells us about the IP NFTs. So it's really cool in decentralized science how you can use the expertise of different people at different times. Or 2 IP NFT, well, okay, that title is wrong. I was showing one of our IP NFTs, Mario Cordero was the first one, on our equity deal with the Dr. Lene Brayboy. We're specifically proud about the one with Dr. Lene Brayboy because she is a very respected researcher in the field in reproductive longevity. She worked at Clue, which is one of the biggest femtech companies in this space. And now she launched her own company, which is at the cusp of fertility/AI. But I'm even more proud that today we have Dr. Joshua Johnson, who's who's leading one of the most respected labs in reproductive longevity in the country. And he is our second IP NFT. So I'm gonna like scroll through very fast the other slides, so we actually get him to come up here with Jenna, and we have a conversation about both Jenna and Dr. Johnson have been onboarded into DeSci from different aspects. So let's talk about people that actually got into this space and why they're here. These are some of our next deals that we're going to be funding in the next 2 months, including our first company spin out. Rather than talk about a cohort-based approach, which is different from all the bio DAOs, in which we really focus in different areas. When you say women's health is too vast, women's health comprises from reproduction, autoimmune diseases, things that natal, prenatal, postnatal. So we do everything by focusing on areas of research. We've already talked about ovarian aging and longevity. We've also done a PCOS and endometriosis, and right now we are doing our oncology session. So if you know any researchers that are working in uterine cancers, please send them our way, because we have a call for submissions for that kind of research. And just about 2 weeks ago, Jenna and one of our neuroscientists actually published a YouTube video where they show the market research that they did in the area of oncology, which everybody that knows healthcare knows that oncology gets massive pools of funding. Foundations, stars do walks for oncology, biotech, lots of funded companies. And lo and behold, the area of research that gets the least funding in oncology is, guess what? Uterine cancers. And it has zero correlation to burden of disease, what do you call it? The disease burden. There's other cancers that have less patients that get way more funding. Why? Because for insurance companies, it is more interesting to refund a rare disease cancer, so refund 5 people, than to refund 10% of the population on a cancer. It's insane how this unit economics works, but that's a reality. With that said, as I said, we're into rare cancers, including ovarian, uterine, vaginal, vulvar, and fallopian tube. And we're very excited because we're going into our deep tech, reprotech cohort, which will include things like the artificial womb, in vitro gametogenesis, and everything that has to do with the next generation of reproductive technologies. We're also getting ready for our IPTs, which is the next generation of contracts. So after IP NFTs, there is IPTs, which fractionalize the IP NFTs. So the IP NFTs is actually the contract of funding the research or the company. Well, it's mostly research. And if the research meets a milestone, we would actually be able to fractionalize the contract to get more funding for that researcher. So as soon as Joshua's project hits the next milestone, you'll be hearing about that IPT. But Dr. Mario Cordero, we're getting ready for his, and we have 3 more in the pipeline. So we're very excited about this. The other part that is huge for us is everybody talks about onboarding people into DeSci or into Web3. I don't know if there's going to be like 1 billion meme coiners or devs or like geeks that we're going to be able to get out there. But you know what we have in touch? Women. And you know what women are? 80% of the consumer population in the world. So if you get the women into Web3, you haven't made. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to get the women into Web3. So what does Web3 look like with 80% of the consumer population excited? If you want to find out, you should try to join AthenaDAO. And we have a secret project that we're working on. I would get on that list ASAP, because it's going to be a lot of fun, and it's the Save the Ovaries movement, and it's going to involve really getting the women onboarded into Web3, because that's who you need, people that are actually excited about these things and that they think that this is going to make a difference in their lives. With that said, scan that, and I'm going to have Dr. Joshua Johnson and Jenna Harris come here. So we talked about a funded researcher in DeSci and a molecular biologist who just graduated and actually has a full-time job in DeSci now. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Jenna, if you want to go.
All right, so my name is Jenna, and I'm a molecular biologist by training. I did my PhD at Brandeis University in Massachusetts. My interest in Web3 and crypto was actually began in 2020. Just from learning about personal finance and trying to understand investing. But it was really exciting for me to see decentralized science come to fruition toward the end of my PhD. So after I defended last year, and I met Laura at Eats Boston last year, so it was a no-brainer to join AthenaDAO after I defended.
Thanks. We're glad to have you. Joshua?
Hi, I'm Josh Johnson. I'm a researcher here in Denver at the University of Colorado Health Sciences Center in Aurora. I got my PhD at Arizona State University. I did a postdoc at Mass General Hospital. And throughout these times, I've been studying ovaries and ovarian aging and mechanisms that control how quickly women lose their follicles during their postnatal life. It's a pleasure to be here. And as you might guess, with limitations on funding in women's health, I'm thrilled to be funded by AthenaDAO.
So let's start with like a first basic question for Dr. Johnson is how did you hear about our funding mechanism?
So I was at a reproductive aging conference in Palm Springs 2 years ago, and I believe Maria from your team was there. I talked to her about an impending call for applications and watched for it and applied.
And Jenna, how did you hear about decentralized science?
Well, one may just be from being chronically online. Uh, so yeah, I started to hear about it then. And yeah, I went to Eats Boston to see some demos and got more in depth there.
So, I mean, you know, the important part about having a funded researcher here that's into decentralized science is we always talk about theoretical things a lot of these conferences. Like, oh, we're going to build these tools and all these scientists are going to come, or oh, we're going to do this and everybody's just going to like join happily. But in terms of the process of getting the funding, Joshua, what is it that you had to explain to your TTO, to the tech transfer office? How was that process in terms of getting them interested in saying yes?
So the good news is that it was very much like applying for any grant that I would. Internal to universities or research institutions, you have people to help you navigate the granting process, get your application in proper shape and so on, but also understand the terms that need to be met to accept the money. It is never a hard prospect telling your institution that money is available to you, nor were the terms that AthenaDAO offered onerous or difficult to sell. So trading a portion of the IP value and trading part of my time to interact with people interested in funding me is always valuable. So it was easy.
And I think I want to stress that this is one thing that we talk to our funders or people in the ecosystem that's very particular to women's health. Because I said we had lunch today with Joshua, and you have to be a bit of a masochist to work in women's health. There was a workshop that Molecule ran earlier this month, and the slide there was, Web3 is hard, biotech is hard, so you do DeSci and it becomes harder. Well, I want to tell you, you do DeSci in women's health, and it's an Olympian effort because it just takes a lot to get people to relate. And that's why one of the big things that we say now is, does everybody know who the richest man in the world is? Officially is, yes, the French guy, Bernard Arnault, the owner of LVMH. Do you guys know what LVMH is? It's a conglomerate that owns a bunch of luxury houses. Louis Vuitton, Dior, Sephora, a bunch of champagne, you name it. So that guy is the most base man on earth. You know why? Because in 1984, he bought Dior and he realized this is how I'm going to become massively rich. He didn't have to be a woman to relate to buying luxury fashion. He just knew it was going to be an amazing consumer market. So it is that I say to our funders that have given us money, you guys are the most base men or women. You get it. You know that this is a business and that it's not because we want to sell things to women that they don't need. It's because we're going to give women things they need. And if a woman can drop $40,000 on a bag just for the desire of it, imagine what she's going to drop for having technology that actually impacts her health. So with that said, our opportunities in women's health are tenfold because people are still not catching on it fast enough. That's why we have to go very fast, because they will catch on it. But Joshua said, I mean, building on his point, it was easy for him to explain it because he knows that his TTO is going to say, well, what are my other options, right? This is the other part. What are the other options? And there are not that many. And for you, Jenna, why did you decide to go this route instead of industry or regular like biotech?
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, funding is a huge issue. Also, and I want to open this question up after this, like why you both got interested in reproductive longevity. But also, yeah, in my PhD, I studied longevity. And I don't know, I didn't like study sex differences in longevity. I studied RNA in the aging brain. And I just would go home and think, well, there's a huge difference between aging and men and women. And that's menopause. Every single woman will experience menopause. So I wanted to be intentional about where I put my effort and what I worked on. So yeah, to be able to stay like in longevity, but to move into women's health where I feel like I can make an impact. And I can see it's just like great, like when I'm able to talk to other women in my life who've had a miscarriage, who have PCOS, and they get frustrated with basically there's very few options for them. A lot of times their conversations go nowhere. No one wants to hear it. So I can see how meaningful it is to them as well. So it's really motivating, and yeah, I just wanted to be intentional. But yeah, so I would like to ask both of you, like, how you got interested in reproductive longevity.
They're scientists first.
Sure, thanks. So I'm very lucky because when I started graduate school, I stumbled into a really unique problem in biology generally, and that is in ovaries that contain follicles that contain eggs. If a woman is born with 100,000 of these structures, those structures will be lost or begin to grow and then die over 35 years. A follicle can be sitting in the ovary, touching another follicle. One will begin to grow when the girl is 13, and the one it was touching when she's 50. And that biological question, the interesting nature of how these structures decide to stay dormant or begin to grow, I fell in love with immediately. And it's 20 years later, and I'm studying the same problem. The neat thing about that is I get to the benefit of working on a problem that's also so meaningful to people's lives and their health. Jenna mentioned PCOS, the same mechanisms that control whether follicles begin to grow are indirectly involved in how long they stay alive. And if they stay alive inappropriately, you get PCOS. So I'm lucky that I get to work on a very interesting scientific problem, but also one that's extraordinarily meaningful. And that if a woman hits menopause when she's 41, she's quite likely to live half of her life until her 80s postmenopausally. And my goal, if something is to come of my work and translate to the clinic, is to have that woman instead hit menopause at the median age of 51, right? To another decade of healthy living where her bones are healthier, her heart is healthier, simply by targeting those follicles in the ovary.
Well, I got into it because I don't want to have menopause, which I will, because I don't think the technology will be there. But I was a longevity advocate. I mean, I'm still a longevity advocate for a long time. And I realized in the longevity space, I mean, my friends of AthenaDAO are not here, and I started my road at DSI with them. To this day, they haven't funded a single research or project that targets reproductive longevity. And that's not because AthenaDAO exists. That's just because that's how things are, even in the longevity space. You saw that chart. Oh, reproductive longevity was second last after dogs, and second last and just after dogs. So the dogs are still more important than than women. And in the space, chronically, we're not actually funding women at all in venture capital, in healthcare, in research. And I worked in an industry, in the luxury industry, where like I saw what women are able to spend. I spent half of my life selling things to people they don't need. So I'm like, why not work on something for people, like selling them something that they need? So that's how I got into it. And because, yes, I'm solving for myself. Maybe I want to have a kid at 50. Maybe I want to have a kid at 80, like Al Pacino. And why should I not be able to? You know, he can. Why can't I? So if there's an artificial womb and with IVG, an egg from my stem cell and everything that's a manufacturer, hey, why should that not be an option? And I know you get into areas that people are like very scared about, but the fact of the matter is that biology has not been fair to women in some areas, and this one is one. The whole fertility thing, menopause, we are not as healthy after menopause. We should actually be looking into this more. And the shocker is that I really don't care so much if the men don't care. I get it, they are not relating. I'm more concerned that so many women don't know this is a problem. Like they don't. They think everything has been solved. They think I was at a beauty appointment 2 days ago, and we were like, we talked about menopause, and she's like, oh, but there are so many things now. And I'm like, no, there's only hormone replacement therapy, and some doctors will not allow you to have it. So there's nothing. So imagine how many women out there think that IVF, it's okay, that egg freezing is okay, even though it's so painful. IVF is like very restrictive because it's expensive. So if you don't spend $250 million, maybe you're never going to have a baby. And even if you have all the money in the world, like Jennifer Aniston, 2 years ago, an article came out about her not being able to fulfill her wish to be a mother. And that was a very rich woman. Imagine all those wealthy women, like what's her name? Amy Schumer. Yeah, like right now, everybody was making fun of her on social media because her face is like very swollen. And she has autoimmune diseases and endometriosis, and she's a wealthy woman. Imagine what's happening to women that don't have money. I mean, and I don't get it because women make 80% of the consumer decisions in healthcare as well. So there's a market, a big market opportunity, and a big market opportunity that could do a lot of good.
Yeah, and just to add, and then we can go more deeper and deeper into the science. But yeah, and then recently McKinsey showed, well, just a fun fact first, women live longer than men, but most of that time is spent in poor health. And so McKinsey recently showed, yeah, like basically we can grow the global GDP by, I don't know, it was like
It was $1 spent in women's health research would grow the GDP times 4. Because the output in like women from menopause, taking time off, PCOS, and all of that would actually impact the economy favorably if these women had proper therapeutics and mechanisms to treat some of these conditions.
I can follow from that because in my grants, I had sentences like, if you could delay menopause across the board in women in the United States by a year, the decline in health problems that begin with the onset of menopause, it's very difficult to calculate the money that you save. So the numbers that you're presenting are actually clearer numbers than I've had because it's difficult to calculate the bone fractures that go missing if menopause is delayed only, let's say.
Heart disease,
You bet.
Alzheimer's, neurodegenerative diseases are increased after menopause for women. Like women don't know this either. And that shocked me to the core when I found out. I'm like, what? We need to change this. But go deep into the science now, please.
Yeah. So the first, the question is just, so Dr. Johnson received IPNFT. So just if you could tell a little bit more about the research you're doing with that.
Sure, that project is funded to screen a series of natural compounds related to a compound interestingly isolated from purple sweet potatoes. So in the disease galactosemia, women hit menopause a median age of 19. right? 26 is quite late if you have galactosemia. And in collaborative work with the University of Utah, we showed that this isolate from purple sweet potatoes can delay menopause in a mouse model of galactosemia. Cutting to the point, however, these compounds have not been screened in normal mice. And so far, our treatment of mice, there are hints that a few of these compounds could be effective in slowing ovarian aging in the absence of that disease. So just a screen of natural compounds. And what we talked about at lunch also is that no woman, as far as I'm aware, has ever had menopause after the age of 62. And given a nutritional supplement or something that people can tolerate for years at a time, that world record will be broken, in my lifetime, surely. So that's the funded project through AthenaDAO.
Hopefully it'll be me. No.
Yeah, and so, yeah, that's just one project. And then, yeah, you've also had quite a 2024 already. And yeah, I would just love if you could tell us more about the 2 papers that have come out of your lab and with your collaborators this year.
Sure. And I think for this audience that's tech savvy and computer science heavy, you'll enjoy even looking at these online publications. So in work again with a separate mathematician, in this case at the University of Utah, we're modeling ovarian aging. And remember, that was my obsession since early in grad school, how those follicles behave. And it turns out if you simulate follicle behavior as if they're behaving randomly, I heard some folks over here speaking of random behavior in math earlier, you can both produce the pattern that women hit menopause across the population. And the reason the first paper made such a big splash is that by modeling follicle behavior in the ovary over time, you get that menopausal pattern, but also the pattern when women's periods start to become irregular. And that's called the menopausal transition. So you can imagine there are 2 events in women's lives that occur without warning. Their periods become irregular, and then their periods stop. And it turns out our work can explain how those events are linked, mechanistically working back to their ovaries where this process starts. So that's the first story. That paper is in the journal Science Advances. If you email me, I'm happy to send it to you. The second paper is related, more directly to delaying the loss of ovarian function. And this is in collaboration again with the same mathematician, but also an old collaborator of mine. He's now at Yale University School of Medicine, Kutluk Oktay. Kutluk approached me and said, hey, do you think your mathematical modeling approach could account for this special surgical case where we remove a piece of the ovary and freeze it and put it back later? This is done routinely now, and it's approved.
Especially for cancer patients.
Standard of care for cancer patients, right? So if you're facing a cancer treatment that will sterilize you, that will kill follicles, many chemotherapies will, you have a piece of your ovary removed and frozen, you take your course of chemotherapy, recover, and then you put that ovarian piece back, and it works fine. And women have had, I think there are 250 plus live births since that procedure has been done in cancer patients. But Dr. Oktay asked, what would happen if we did this in healthy women? Can your mathematical modeling tell us how that tissue would likely function, how long it would last, how much should you take out? If you take out half of one ovary, a quarter of one ovary, what happens if 50% of the follicles die when you're handling it and freeze it, or 40%? So the mathematician, Dr. Lowley, created an interactive online tool that shows us how the tissue would be likely to function. And that work has garnered significant attention because it's very practical. And if you think about it, if it works in cancer patients whose bodies have been exposed to chemo, it's likely to work even better in healthy women. So that paper is in the American Journal of Obstetrics and Gynecology. And again, I'm happy to share it with you directly.
So I want to ask Jenna because she understands the tools very well. She's one of those people that actually tried Research Hub, DeSci Labs. Like she went out there and tried everything out. Probably if you want to do something in DeSci and you want a scientist to use it to tell you what they really think, you should talk to Jenna. But Joshua had some ideas, and you, Jenna, from the ideas of you think of the tooling in DeSci. Joshua, what do you see the big opportunity as being compared to, you're a funded researcher from the government, you're a funded researcher in DeSci, you're published in in academic publishing, traditional legacy. What do you think we could do in DeSci that would actually make a difference for researchers? Because that's how the conversation started today, right? So since you are a scientist who has the full-on experience, academia, funded by the government, published, what is it that we could be doing here that would actually, you think, be optimize things more for somebody like you and get more people onboarded to the space?
So the word that came up a few times is friction, and my days and nights are filled with friction and administrative burden and nonsense. And I'm so thrilled to not be there today. It's great to be doing something else and thinking differently. And I would say that anything that searching for ways to reduce friction, the introduction of new tools is wonderful, and all of us will take and incorporate into our workflows any tool that makes our day-to-day life easier, simpler, and with less friction, right? Anything. I'll take it and use it. And I am reasonably tech savvy, have nothing on everyone else in this room, but I at least know enough what's going on to say if there are options available that I would like to use if I had time, right? We routinely, and it's much more common in the last 2 years even, for us to upload our raw data to repositories, right? That's very annoying and tedious to format that data and put it online. It makes publishing much easier. So anything, and please, in the question and answer, ask me does this sound it would make your life more easy, Josh? And I will tell you, and then I'll use it. So.
If you don't mind, be able to get up the point of
I talked to a gentleman earlier. So first and foremost, it may or may not be clear to all of you, the currency of my job and the ability for me to have an ongoing job are publishing in reputable journals, right? I know those of you nodding that as if that's obvious. Many people don't know that. The second reason I get to have a job is I bring in funding. To bring in the funding depends on publishing in reputable journals. When I get grant reviews, whether they're funded or not, it says Johnson has published here, here, and here in the last 2 years. That is not good enough, okay? In the best case scenario, he's published here, 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 and here, and here, and that's just good enough to give him some money. Anytime I send a paper and it gets rejected, it's not only tedious and I'm crying because it didn't get accepted. That's probably 5 to 10 more hours of my life reformatting that paper for another journal. And it's absurd, right? That should be automated. I mentioned someone, I almost started a company just to say for X dollars, I will reformat your papers. And that's a real opportunity. And so that's just one other example, but I emphasize the things that we have to do without a minute of extra distraction just to keep our jobs. And in an OBGYN department where I am, with limited funds available to the community, you don't have time to fool around. 5 to 10 hours of sitting, typing and pecking. Oh, headings, the order that sections of your paper are required to be in. So the part where you say where your funding is, provide the funder's name and search their databases for unique IDs for each grant, buy in every author, and now you have 20 authors, right? And the issue is that this journal asked for it, but the last one didn't. So there's endless things. And then the real-time constraint is that you did all of that. You got through their system and push submit. And 2 weeks later, they send it back to you and say, hey, you forgot to italicize this. No joke. It's brutal. Yeah, it's brutal. Yeah, incredible friction. Hi.
I was wondering, essentially, what reasons have you heard as to why there isn't more funding? Long term? And then had any pushback for the research that you're doing? What reasoning have you given? I'm specifically asking because I work in clinical research and I kind of see the dichotomy. I work in 1/2 of my studies is family planning, specifically for pregnancy, and then the others are focusing around PCOS and endometriosis. And I can see the payment that they give the patient for PCOS and endometriosis studies are very minimal. Mainly patients are kind of doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They want the research to continue. So I'm just wondering, what reasons have you heard as to why there is?
Can I take
Yeah,
that
yeah.
one?
She has.
No one dies because they're infertile. Flat out.
Seriously?
I have heard that. I've heard that from NIH officials that priority is based on life-threatening disease. We are not good as a country prioritizing, wellness and preventative medicine anyway. What is more preventative than many women's health concerns, right? Have we studied how we might prevent the onset of PCOS in women who don't have it as young women? No. Right? And so the combination of us not as a nation prioritizing preventative medicine and prioritizing and I have not even said that men's lives are viewed as more important by the medical establishment, which bears out. So your second part of your question, though, was, have I received pushback? Only when people are uninformed about the actual goals. And, Laura mentioning having the freedom to have a child as late as one desires, that's completely reasonable from her perspective. I'm only bringing it up because when I justify our work, I say my target is taking women who will have menopause early and trying to get them to the median age. The median age of 51, that's not very aggressive. I should be able to argue that all women have it at age 62, there are trade-offs in terms of health risks, and the trade-offs according to clinicians tell me that you're healthier having functioning ovaries later through that world record age 62 than the risks that arise because you have extended menopause, extended ovarian function. So no one is mad when I tell them what I actually am interested in. And they're really not mad when I say, I actually just want to know how ovaries work.
We have 1 more minute, but I just want to say that I was attending the McKinsey preview for the report that came out. And there was a panel, there was somebody in insurance very high up, a venture capitalist, a bunch of people, but the venture capitalist, a woman, she pushed back the insurance guy a lot because she brought up the point that PCOS, endometriosis, 1 in 10 women has endometriosis. That's massive, 1 in 10. But in the US, the insurance companies don't care about endometriosis because of the reimbursements. They rather pay for very expensive rare diseases reimbursements. And that's why even biotech, it's very hard to find certain type of rare diseases. In the meantime, all these women go without treatment because in the end, one of the biggest issues that we have to tackle, even in longevity healthcare, is insurance. Who's paying for it? Who's getting the refund? And that business is so massive that that's I think a whole other conference. But In any case, we have like 10 seconds. Thank you so much to Dr. Joshua Johnson. I think for those who are here and want to have a scientist tested, he should speak to him. He's very friendly. He gives his email to everybody. He'll talk to you. And he's probably one of the people that if you're building tools, this is who you're building for, not like some esoterical idealization of scientists. He's here. Make use of people like him.
Yeah, once you have your MVP, like I like to beta test things, but
Send it to
I've-
Jenna too.
well, yeah, send it to me, but also, but I've been in Web3 for about 3 years now. So also like just thinking in a more traditional setting, like scientists are used to having vendors come through the lab, and they shill their Web2 things.
Go
so-
chill the Web3
so-
stuff.
So go to the universities, get the people in the labs who don't use Web3 at all and get them to beta test also.
Thank you.